All right, hello students. So we're going to get into this unit. We're going to start with 8.1, which is about random sampling methods. You could go ahead and copy this title down. Now, as you copy this title down, why do we do this? Because sometimes maybe we want to, let's say, sell something, right? We talked about concerts or we talk about sports games, and we want to see how many people are interested in this event. Because if we want to try something out, if we want to do something on a large scale that will affect everyone, where everyone is invited, then we want to make sure that we have a good basis for what we're about to do. Okay? So, this leads to the first word that we're going to write down, and that is the word population. And a population for us would generally be anyone or everyone who will be affected. All right. So, for example, we might have something like SPH KV, right? Let's write that as an example, actually. In other words, maybe we want to try out a new program and we want to see if, many people would be interested in, let's say, like a sport like lawn bowling or something, or curling, right? So we want to see, okay, are people going to be interested in this? We're going to invite all of SPH KV. Well, how would I know who would be affected? So let's say I want to do a survey to see if people are interested, but I don't want to survey every single person because that might take a little bit too long or it might be too tiring. Because of that, I need to have a sample. Now, a sample you would have already seen as well. Maybe if you go to a store and you want to try something out, or you go to an ice cream shop. You know how when you're given a sample, you're given like a spoonful of ice cream, like a tiny spoonful of ice cream, not the entire ice cream itself. That's because you just want to try it first. So for us, same thing. We want to have this event and we want the whole school to be invited, but we can't test everyone and see if everyone is, or like ask everyone one by one. So here, a sample would be a small group to test. And so, for example, we'll just say some students, and we need coaches, so we want to see who's interested. So we'll say and coaches. Now, most of the time, you'll see that SPH KV is actually a really small group. It's a small school. I mean, small enough for us to not have to have a sample. But if you want things a little bit faster, you don't always have to test every single person, right? You just choose your sample. And with this, we also have something called a sample size. So you need to decide how many people are enough to test out or to survey, right? So this will be how big the sample is. So let's say for SPH KV, I know that there are, oops, let me erase and just put that. Let's say that I know that there's about 500 to 600 students in SPH KV. So maybe I just need to test out, let's say, 30 students. And for the teachers, maybe I will test out 10 teachers. Right, so about 40 people in total. So you see how now we have the population, who's anyone who will be affected, the sample, who's the small group you're going to test out, and the sample size is how big you want that group to be. All right, so now I'm going to scroll this. Now, in a sample, you would want things to be random. Okay, and this means that we have a, let's see, we don't know who we will choose. And ideally, it could be anyone. All right, so why this part is important is because I can't just choose the students who are athletic all the time, right? Because maybe I'm trying to get students who might not be interested in other sports. Maybe they would be interested in curling, but I don't know if how many students that would be. So, or who that would be. Maybe the non-athletic students would love to give this a try, or I mean the students who are not involved in any athletics right now. Okay, so these are 4 keywords that you'll definitely need to know. And now there are 3 types of choosing this random sample. And we're just going to say 3 types of, we're going to call this sampling. Sampling is the act of choosing who your sample is. So now there are 3 types that we're going to cover today. And there's usually more, but in this case, in this year, we only need to know 3. And these 3 are the more popular ones as well. So let's start with the first one. It's going to be simple random sampling. Now, there are a few ways to do simple random sampling. Simple random sampling simply means to just go for any number of people, okay? Or like just try to choose anyone. So the first option would probably be the most kind of like the more obvious one, but it's simple. Just choose randomly. So you can just choose randomly. Just, go to the first 10 people that you see, and that's the first 10. Find another 10 people, and that's it. Another example here is you could do a lottery system. So a lottery means you use a bank, and what we mean by bank is like a bank of names. So let's just say a bank of names. Okay, put the names all in like a pile or something. Then you just choose the first 40 people you find, right? So that could be another example. Another option that the book gives you, and you could see a good example of it there, is a random number table. I would suggest that you check the book out, but what they do is they have a list of just random numbers. You just put them all there, and then you circle numbers. Let's say you assign everyone in the school from numbers 0 to 500, and then you choose random 3-digit numbers. So you'll get, like, at some point the number 093, that's person number 93. You go through your list, and then you choose that person, and then you just keep circling numbers until you get the one until you get the total that you need there for your sample size. And the last one is using a computer. So teachers actually use this. You may have experienced this. If we use something like Class Dojo and we use a randomizer, and then we just select a random student, that will be using a computer. All right, so that's an example of simple random sampling. And that's pretty much, at the end of the day, it's just, you just choose, right? Like whatever system you have, it's there, but you could choose from anyone. Now, the second one is called stratified sampling. In stratified sampling, you start by dividing people into subgroups. Now, these subgroups cannot overlap. So in other words, no one should be in 2 subgroups. Everyone should only be in 1 subgroup at a time. So cannot overlap. So let's do an example here. So some things that you might see are maybe boys versus girls. Another example would be maybe you split them up based on grade level. Or maybe you want to use junior school versus middle school versus high school. All right, so now what you do is you divide them into those subgroups first. And then after you're done, you choose certain amounts of people. From each. So maybe I want this a little bit fairer. I split the class list into boys and girls, and then, or the school list, and then I will choose 20 boys and 20 girls. Or maybe one person from each grade level, or maybe 3 people from junior school, 3 from middle school, 3 from high school. So this leads us to the last type, which is a systematic random sampling, or systematic sampling. So in the case of a systematic sampling, I would have some kind of system that have some kind of rule. So you have a rule to follow, or that you follow. So maybe an example of this would be out of a list of all the students in alphabetical order from last name, you choose every 10th person. The trick here is to take your there is a way to do this if you're gonna have like the numbering. Ideally, for the example 2, you would take the population size, and then you divide it by your sample size, and you should have a number. Now usually that number right there would be the number that you would use to decide like which person you would choose. Okay, so maybe let's say that the population is so let's say it is 500 for Espeja, and let's say for the sample size I want to have 25 people. So then I would see that this is 20. So that means every 20th person. Okay, so one last note to keep in mind is there is no wrong way to do this most of the time. Let's say almost always. No wrong way. But there is a best way. Ultimately, you will have to be able to justify whatever you decide. But as long as you can always justify what you are doing, then there is the best way. And the best way would hopefully be one that is the simplest for you, but also the one that gets the most results for you as well. All right, so with that, we're going to leave it there, but please keep in mind that there are these 3 types of sampling. These 3 types are the ones that you want to really focus on. You should remember what simple random sampling is, stratified sampling, and systematic sampling are. And if you want to read a little bit more about what they're like, you could look at the textbook. This is a summary of whatever is listed there. All right, so that's it for today.